Hello, hello, Jordan Chariton live. Status Coup. It is Friday, June 21st, 2024, in the United Corporations of America. I hope everybody is having a lovely day. I hope everyone is staying cool, particularly in the Northeast. It's 97 where I am right now. I walked my dog at 8:15 a.m. this morning, and I was schwitzing. It was so hot, and she was panting. Poor Millie. But it's too hot to walk. I mean, you can't even walk your dog at like 8 o'clock at night. It's still too hot. You'd have to wake up at like 6:30, 7 a.m. to walk the dog in semi-cool weather. But a lot going on. Figured we'd have a casual call-in session where we talk via the phone about whatever you want today. Also wanted to get into a piece I wrote yesterday on, at this point, evidence, I believe, that the media in the United Corporations of America is just straight up corrupt. Not lazy, not just out of touch, corrupt. In on it, in on the cover up. And it is really, really, really grotesque, if you ask me, because the media is literally and consciously choosing to hide life and death information, life or death information from the public. It seems for fear of unsettling their corporate advertisers, which is scandalous, truly scandalous. Smash the like button, share this live stream so we can get it out with as many people as possible. We have been pumping out a lot of great clips from John Farina's coverage of all the protests. At this point, he has covered at the nearly 60, I would say. It might even be more than 60. We haven't really kept count, but it is unbelievable. He, more than anyone else, has covered these protests all over the country, New York, D.C. Tina has covered a couple for us in L.A., and a couple clips we posted over the last few days show quite the different standard that the police have if you are a pro-Israel Zionist fanatic. You apparently could hit police and not get arrested. You could scream at police and not get arrested. You can hurl threats of violence or rape at pro-Palestinian protesters in front of police, not even get a talking to. In fact, the behavior that John captured on camera from pro-Israel Zionists was praised on camera. A cop said, "Good work." So we're going to show you that. I'll give you my thoughts. But first, I want to get to this piece. It's on our Substack. It's kind of long, so if you haven't had a chance to read it, hopefully this weekend you can read it. I made it long because there was so much ground to cover. And I wanted to really make sure you knew what is happening behind the scenes on stories we're breaking, and how after we break really, really important stories, other media outlets are confirming that our reporting is right and then just choosing not to report it. And this isn't a case of like, you say tomato, I say tomato, meaning I could think something is newsworthy, but another outlet might not. These are clearly newsworthy stories that mainstream media outlets, national and local, are passing on. And the only reason I could think of, in some cases, we know this is why, is not to piss off their advertisers, or because they simply don't care about poor people that are poisoned. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but definitely sign up for our Substack. You could read this for free. I encourage you to read it, share it so we can get this to more people. I'm going to start breaking down three major stories I broke over the last 2 weeks. And each one of these on their own were newsworthy. In the piece, I go through starting June 10th. in the Detroit Metro Times, I released audio where then Flint mayoral candidate Sheldon Neely, he's now the mayor, accused the powerful Mott Foundation of pulling strings behind the scenes that caused the Flint water crisis. On the tape, Neely also implied that the Mott Foundation, which is the biggest foundation in Flint, is racist. Both Neely and the Mott Foundation issued responses to my story. Colin, do we still have the audio? I should have asked you. If we don't, it's fine. But essentially, this was audio where the current mayor of Flint, unprompted by me, I just said to him, from what I hear, the Mott Foundation is residents don't like him. Here we go. Let's play it.
A lot of residents keep complaining to me about Mott, like Mott owns Flint and Mott, basically the politicians, because Mott gives so much money, like Mott wants the crisis to be over so they could gentrify. Is that a big elephant in the room?
Did you get the civil rights study? It says the whole crisis was through systemic racism.
Yeah.
You got that? So
I know that. Okay. Yeah.
But did you read the book about the Motts and their relationship?
Yeah, I'm reading it right now.
So they don't give $100 million to a cause because they just say we want to help out.
Right.
They picked the first two emergency managers. So, I mean, so there's a lot that being, your documentary is, documents based, but they picked the first two emergency managers, which names you never hear in the criminal culpability, which is Mike Brown and Ed Kurtz. Ed Kurtz is the one that made the decision to use Flint River water. Darnell Early is the one that pulled the trigger.
So basically, he was a candidate then, but now he's the mayor, on tape saying that this powerful foundation essentially was pulling the governor's strings, and they're the ones that dictated who he would appoint as unelected emergency managers to drive Flint into crisis, because the emergency managers are the ones that made the decisions that poisoned the community. I don't know. Maybe I missed that day in journalism school. I kind of think that's newsworthy that the mayor is on tape saying this. Oh, by the way, he's saying, did you read the study and did you read the book about how racist this foundation is? Allegedly, they deny it. Well, not one outlet would cover that in Flint. Not just the audio, but after the fact, they wouldn't even cover that the mayor and the foundation responded. Wonder about that. Okay. So that was one story. Then the next day in our Substack, I broke that the EPA, which for over a year insisted it was not detecting toxic vinyl chloride, essentially toxic cancerous gas that was detonated unnecessarily over East Palestine and Western Pennsylvania. But I broke that not only have they recently found it in East Palestine, they hid it from the public. My story included text messages between an EPA official and a local Pennsylvania resident where the EPA official admitted the agency detected vinyl chloride. Okay, we'll get to that. Then this week, I broke that the FBI was investigating that paper mill in Kalamazoo that we covered on the ground last year, where Colin and I got sick. That they were contacting local residents and activists. And among the questions and things they're looking into, they were asking about, well, why did Governor Whitmer, Democratic Governor Whitmer, why did she approve a tax break and a major bond deal for this multi-billion-dollar corporation that's gassing a poor black community to death? Why did she approve financial tax cuts and a major bond deal for them to expand after all of these complaints from residents and after her environmental department issued air pollution and odor violations to the paper mill? So her own environmental department has issued over a dozen air pollution violations and odor complaints. Yet her administration approved $21 million in tax breaks, $125 million in a bond deal. I guess you didn't hear about that. in the New York Times adoring puff piece about her, or the Washington Post slobbering profile about her, or name your media outlet that has done adoring coverage over Gretchen Whitmer. Okay. So let me read from my story. Number one, on the Flint story. It is inarguably a major news story when the mayor of Flint is on tape accusing the powerful Mott Foundation, which funds most of Flint's public life, of racism and dictating who then Governor Snyder appointed as unelected emergency managers in Flint, whose decisions helped cause the water crisis. I sent the story to every Michigan and Flint outlet I could think of. I mean, you guys have no idea. I spend half my time now not reporting, but trying to get the mainstream media to fucking pick up my reporting. Not for my ego, but so the people can have their story told. This isn't about me. Here's the graphic. I sent it to the Detroit Free Press. I sent it to the Detroit News. The Flint Journal. We'll get to the Flint Journal in just a beat. Flint Beat. Click on Detroit. ABC 12, who their news director responded, "Thanks for sharing." And ABC 12, you better get ready. Buckle up, because you're in my book that's coming out in August. We the People. Excuse me, We the Poisoned. Exposing the Flint water crisis cover-up and the poisoning of 100,000 people, which, by the way, proud to say I can now announce, put it in your calendar, August 8th. August 8th, 7 p.m. Eastern Time in New York City at the Strand Bookstore. We'll have a graphic and all that. But August 8th, 7 p.m., I'll be doing a book event, and I'm honored to say Susan Sarandon will be there interviewing me about my book. So this will be 2 days after the book comes out, August 8th. The Strand, which is a pretty famous independent bookstore in New York City, 7 o'clock Eastern. My family will be there. My wife will be there. Probably not my daughter. It's too late. It's her bedtime. But 7 o'clock Eastern, Susan Sarandon has agreed to interview me. I am honored. I am excited. If you live in New York or driving distance to New York, I hope you can make it August 8th. But I'll remind you as we go. All right. So Detroit Free Press, Detroit News, Flint Journal, Flint Beat, click on Detroit, ABC 12 response, thanks for sharing this. NBC Local, Fox Local, CBS Local, Fox Detroit. So Sean Mahone, the news director for ABC 12 in Flint, kindly responded, "Thanks for sharing this," and then kindly buried it. More to come on ABC 12 and their complicity in the Flint water cover-up in my upcoming book. And guess how many of these other outlets covered my story? That would be 0. And then guess what I found out? Well, the Mott Foundation, which is the subject of the story, is a major funder of most of Flint's nonprofit groups, including hospitals, cultural centers, pretty much, most nonprofits in Flint. And guess who are some of the most reliable advertisers on local TV news? Mott-funded nonprofits. Huh. You do the math to figure out why none of them have covered this obviously newsworthy story. And guess what? I didn't put this in the story. Colin, guess what? Guess who rents their newsroom space from a Mott-funded real estate company a block away from the Mott Foundation? Guess who rents their building from a Mott-funded real estate company?
Wasn't that the Flint Journal?
Oh, the Flint Journal. Would you look at that? So the Flint Journal, which didn't report on this, didn't report when I broke that Governor Snyder, his top officials, deleted their phones right before the launch of a criminal investigation. Could you imagine if Trump's top advisors, press secretary, deleted their phones right before the launch of a criminal investigation into Trump? Can you imagine Rachel Maddow and the mainstream media going nuclear? So the Flint Journal didn't cover that. Flint Journal didn't cover when I broke the story that Snyder, his health director, his chief of staff were on the phone like a bunch of drunken teenagers 22 times in 2 days. At the same time, the deadly Legionnaires outbreak was spreading all over Flint. and prosecutors concluded that those phone calls were them covering it up. Didn't cover that. Flint Journal didn't cover when I broke that Snyder's top advisor, his right-hand man, Fixer, was going around Flint offering payoffs to sick Flint residents to keep them quiet. Didn't cover that. I wonder why. They rent essentially in a Mott-funded building. Isn't that interesting? And isn't it interesting that all the nonprofits that Mott funds are some of the most consistent advertisers to local news? And this isn't just a Flint thing. To discuss this major story, I interviewed Steve Nevling, an award-winning investigative reporter with the independent Detroit Metro Times. And he used to be a reporter with the Detroit Free Press, which is a mainstream, I would say, corporate outlet. While discussing the shameful fact that no Michigan outlet would cover the Neely Mott story, Nevling revealed that when he was a reporter at the Detroit Free Press, the top editor, Paul Enger, openly told reporters that the paper would not critically cover the state takeover appointment of unelected emergency managers to take power in Detroit because it might economically hurt the paper. I quote, "We're not going to call this anything but oversight." Nevling recounted the then editor-in-chief Enger sharing. Quote, he said, "If Detroit dies, so do we. If Detroit's economy collapses, if the city government collapses, if the city is no longer able to pay for services, we at the newspaper will no longer be able to survive." Quote, "That's not something you consider when writing a story," he said. If you missed that interview I did with him, we're going to post it in the next couple days. So it's not just Flint. There's an example where the Detroit Free Press essentially lied about the theft of democracy. All these fundraising emails we're getting and media hyperventilating about holy sacred democracy is at stake. Well, in Michigan, democracy really was stolen. From Detroit, from Flint, from a lot of other majority black cities, they put in unelected emergency managers that stole power from the elected mayor and city council. But a Detroit Free Press reporter and other reporters were told by the boss, yeah, we're not going to cover this accurately. We're going to call it oversight because the economy is hurting. And if the economy tanks, we tank. And you wonder how things like the Flint water crisis or Detroit's bankruptcy, and they didn't need to go bankrupt. It was a conspiracy by Snyder and his Republican friends to make Detroit go bankrupt. You wonder how that happens if the news media doesn't cover the theft of democracy accurately. It's truly unbelievable. Again, if you think it's just that media, journalists are lazy or out of touch, it's worse. They're actually corrupt. Number two, on my story about the EPA hiding the detection of vinyl chloride in East Palestine from the public, which is a scandal, indicating the agency is withholding critical public health information about cancerous chemicals still threatening East Palestine and Pennsylvania residents, I communicated with Josh Funk, a reporter with the Associated Press. You ever hear of the Associated Press? Kind of big, right? Funk has previously reported on the East Palestine derailment and chemical detonation. He told me, quote, "After your story ran, the EPA confirmed the vinyl chloride discovery to me late yesterday afternoon." So, i.e., I confirmed that you, Jordan, your reporting was correct. He also said he was working on following up on this development while also working to, quote, "finish up a couple of other stories." Let me help Funk and the Associated Press out. A development is when your kid is finally able to utter poop to inform you when they've gone number two. My child recently reached that development. In contrast, a federal government agency, after a multi-billion-dollar railroad company chemically nuked a small American town, hiding from the public that it found toxic chemicals over a year after the chemical detonation, is a scandal, not a development. It should be reported immediately so that the affected local residents know the health threats that are still present. So naturally, since Funk confirmed my story was correct, he's followed up with it, his own story in the Associated Press, right? Kudos to Colin. I asked him, I don't know how to put a GIF in a story. He put the Office GIF. So Colin, can I ask you, I know you're an editor. You're not necessarily like a capital R reporter or anything, but when he's saying that there's, I'm just working on some other things, so I'll get to this. Is there something more important that he's working on than the life or death information that a town that he has covered has toxic cancer-causing chemicals still in the ground, likely in the air? Who the fuck knows how far and wide, because the EPA wouldn't give me the real information. They wouldn't answer me what date they detected it. They wouldn't tell me how deep in the soil. They wouldn't tell me if the groundwater was compromised. They wouldn't tell me how they tested the air after they dug out the soil. What could be more important? Has he the only thing more important that has he broken the story that they found the cure for cancer? Has he broken some story on like what really happened on 9/11? Who killed JFK? What could be more important than the fact that the federal government is lying to a community about toxic cancerous chemicals 16 months later?
Well, and it's funny. I was like, what could it be? So I looked to see what his recent articles are on Associated Press, and the only recent article is from the 18th. And I can tell you it's not a time sensitive article. It's because just about how they might one day make biofuel for jets. That's the whole article about, hey, maybe one day corn will fuel jets. And that was 3 days ago. And that's one of the stories that's more pressing than literally every day that goes by that residents aren't aware they're being poisoned is potentially someone who's going to get cancer and just die. But don't worry, people know that biofuel is on its way.
And I want to be fair. Let's be fair, because I don't know this guy. Sure, he's a nice fella. Maybe he's pushing to do it, and his editor, for some God knows what reason, is saying no. Could be. This happens a lot. I've talked to reporters at outlets off the record who tell me they're pushing and their bosses say no. But what are you talking about? This development. Are you on drugs? If you are, please pass them to me. This is not a development. This is a scandal. The EPA for over a year has said we are not detecting vinyl chloride. And, sometimes people hear vinyl chloride is very technical and chemical. Let's just simplify it. We are not detecting highly toxic, cancer-causing, deadly chemicals. We're not detecting it in the air or the soil or the water. Yet, I broke that they are. Yet he says, I'll get to this development when I can. And I think it's 10 days later. Still hasn't gotten to the development yet. I mean, what do you call that? It's not just the AP. Here are other outlets I either pitched doing this story for or sent to after I published it on my own. New York Times, Washington Post, Rolling Stone, The Guardian, ProPublica, The New Republic, Huffington Post, Cleveland Plain Dealer, Akron Beacon Journal, Columbus Dispatch, Cincinnati Enquirer, Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, CBS Cleveland, ABC Cleveland, CBS Youngstown, NBC Steubenville, News Nation. Credit to them. They've done a lot of great work on East Palestine. I don't know why they didn't cover this, but they have done good work. How many of them have reported it since? Not a one. In fact, Stuart Leavenworth, what a name, the Washington Post climate and environmental policy editor, he responded to my pitch because I pitched to a couple places doing the story for them before I published it. He said, we're going to pass, but thanks for bringing this to our attention. When I respectfully asked why they were passing on this critical public health story, he didn't respond. Have they covered it after I self-published it? No. I also spoke with Kelly Kennedy, an investigative reporter with Cleveland 19 News, because she reached out to me. I had posted on Twitter before I published the story, hey, looking for a news outlet to publish this big East Palestine story, reach out to me. She said, hi, I'm a reporter with 19 in Cleveland. Someone sent me your post about East Palestine. I said, yes, I've reported a story showing that the EPA recently detected vinyl chloride in East Palestine and dug it out and didn't notify the public. Pitching outlets to do it for one, would love to do it with an Ohio outlet. I'm willing to co-byline it, meaning I'm willing to add one of their names along with mine to give them credit because all these people care about is credit. I've already written it. After that, she didn't respond. The next day, I sent her the story after I self-published it. She responded the next day, I'm out of the country until next week, but I will talk to you when I'm back. Thanks for the info. Crickets since then. Well, I hope she's having a grand old time, whatever beach she's lying on, while the people of East Palestine are poisoned to death. In fairness, maybe she passed it on to her editor. She's a reporter, so it's not her call. She doesn't run her own outlet like I do. Maybe she passed it on to her editor, and maybe they sat on it. But she knows about it. And this isn't like a story where you have to independently confirm it. My story had the text messages in it where the EPA official is acknowledging, yeah, we found vinyl chloride. He's acknowledging we didn't tell the public. The EPA in my story confirms it. There's nothing to independently confirm. But I found out more. I also learned that other local Ohio, Pennsylvania outlets made calls on the story after I published it, confirmed it was true, and then decided not to report it. How about that? According to Christina Sisiloff, she's a resident of Darlington, Pennsylvania. She lives 6 miles from the derailment. She has been sick from the chemical nuking. She's the one that the EPA official texted acknowledging that they detected vinyl chloride and saying they didn't notify the public. She had a couple journalists reach out to her after my story published. Quote, they asked about the vinyl chloride and they read your article and they wanted to know more about the story to know the whole story. Again, if you read my story, these reporters were clearly being disingenuous. The story already had everything in there. They already had the confirmed facts and they could have reported it. As I wrote, on what planet or sane media system do national and local Ohio, Pennsylvania news outlets not find it obviously newsworthy that the EPA detected toxic chemicals in a town that was chemically nuked 16 months ago and didn't tell anyone? The only one I could think of is one where news outlets people depend on are consciously choosing to hide critical public health threats from the public. But you know what else I found out? And I didn't have time. I found this out yesterday. Well, quite a few local reporters, they've been getting harassed by the EPA in Norfolk Southern not to report certain things. They've been getting harassed by the EPA in Norfolk Southern not to report certain things, which if you were an actual journalist, if the EPA in Norfolk Southern are telling you not to report things, that's all the confirmation you need to know that it's true and you need to report it. So how many people in East Palestine? About 4,000 residents. How many people in Western Pennsylvania that have been poisoned know that vinyl chloride was recently found and the EPA didn't tell anyone? I don't know. 10%, 20%, certainly not everyone, because most people are busy. Most people get their information, 5 minutes watching the local news at night. Local news websites, they don't know about Status Coup. They're not religiously reading our Substack. They should be. StatusCoup.substack.com. I mean, it's truly unbelievable. It's truly unbelievable. But the third one really takes the cake here. In this case, I found out that the FBI is making calls to people in Kalamazoo, Michigan. We covered that toxic paper mill last year. Colin and I both got sick, where this paper mill is releasing over 30 types of gas at hazardous levels into a poor black community. You got crazy levels of asthma, COPD. People are dying of severe asthma attacks. A poor woman, her 17-year-old daughter died from a severe asthma attack. Her 32-year-old son died in February of this year. He was on life support and 24/7 oxygen. Somehow, the local health department still has not given her son's body or paperwork with a cause of death. Nothing to see there, right? So I found out that the FBI, the Department of Justice, first was sent the matter. They referred it to the FBI, and the FBI is looking into the financial relationship between Graphic Packaging, which is the multi-billion-dollar packaging company that's releasing this gas, and Kalamazoo city politicians, that the FBI is looking into why health information about the asthma and other health data disappeared off the Kalamazoo County website, just went up and disappeared conveniently. and asking questions about Whitmer, Governor Whitmer, and why she approved a $21 million tax break and a $125 million bond deal for graphic packaging when she, her health department, and environmental department all knew about all of these complaints from poor Black residents. I don't mean like poor me. I mean poor, economically poor. And why she approved that after her environmental department issued over a dozen violations, air pollution and odor violations. Well, I didn't even bother pitching it because I knew Michigan outlets weren't going to cover it, judging by the fact that they won't cover my Flint stuff. After I broke the story, I learned of at least one outlet and reporter who told a local Kalamazoo resident that they couldn't cover the story for financial reasons. In this case, I won't name names because I was told this in confidence. But I will say it's a major Michigan outlet, and a reporter told the activist they couldn't cover it because some of the corporate advertisers for their media outlet were connected to graphic packaging. Let me repeat. Some of this outlet's advertisers have connections to graphic packaging. That is scandalous. That is corruption. That is immoral. We're not talking about a Trump story. We're not talking about a Russian hacking story. We're talking about toxic gases that are being pumped into a poor community. And by the way, since they've expanded the release of these gases, they're now going into the white community. It's way worse than the Black community, but it's still, I've talked to white folks who are getting headaches and are affected too. And they're not covering it because some of their corporate advertisers are connected to graphic pack. Then why the fuck are you in the business of journalism? Well, actually, you're not in the business of journalism. You are in the business of corporate PR. I mean, this is truly disgusting. With all these stories, there's a collective pattern. They involve poor communities, in this case, two majority Black communities and one majority white, all poor, in which national media journalists are completely disconnected from and don't care all that much about, aside from the initial breaking news and visuals, meaning in the case of Flint, when the lines were long and people were waiting for water, those visuals, or in the case of East Palestine, an explosive detonation of rail cars carrying toxic chemicals. And it's not only national journalists, folks. Truth is, most local journalists who cover particular cities, they don't even live in the cities they cover. I'm not criticizing journalists for where they choose to live. I don't live in Flint and I cover it. I don't live in East Palestine and I cover it. But it's a simple fact. If you're not routinely on the ground talking to affected residents in the communities you cover, you are by default disconnected. That's why I go there, even though it doesn't really make us any money. Even though it is suppressed on YouTube, I go there because how are you going to know what's really going on? How are you going to connect to what's really going on? How are you going to separate fact from fiction? How are you going to find out where the bodies are buried, figuratively, if you're not there? I didn't write this out of my ego to stir shit with other outlets. This isn't about me being upset that my stories aren't getting attention. I honestly would say this if this were written by someone else, if these were written by someone else. This is about it being scandalous that the gatekeepers for vital information to reach the masses, unfortunately, those gatekeepers are still the mainstream media, are consciously closing the gates and locking out life or death information the public needs to know. Well, I guess it makes sense. After all, people won't organize to storm the gates if they don't know their house is on fire. Before we take calls, Colin, am I just being dramatic here? You could tell me. Are these really nothing burgers here? Am I just, expecting too much? I know that there's, multiple Trump trials to cover. I know that we have to cover all the polls of the elections. I know that we have to cover, I don't know, whatever. Yes, we should be covering Israel, Gaza, even though I think the corporate media covers it in a very, very dishonest way. But is there no resources or time in the day for these outlets to report these stories?
You would think that they could at least, just maybe instead of 8 hours of coverage of the Trump trial, they could have done 7 hours and 55 minutes and just stuck 5 minutes of this in there. And for similar to how you always say, for all their pontificating about uh, the downfall of democracy and stuff, while they are the ones removing it. In the same way, they're covering the Trump trial, saying like, does justice still exist? We're about to find out if justice is still real. Well, meanwhile, these are 3 stories literally about justice being subverted for profit, but also with the consequence of actual dead people. Whereas Trump is like just over the trial was just over the porn star payment. It wasn't even over anything bad that he actually did over his presidency.
And let me get to the most important part, because all these stories were kind of technical. But the most important part right now, the city of Flint, Michigan, has one of the highest rising cancer rates in America because of things like this, because the media doesn't tell the truth, so people don't know. Flint, Michigan is one of the fastest growing cancer rates in America. East Palestine, unfortunately, is probably going to be right there with them soon. I hate to say it, but there's already people getting cancer. Not to mention people having seizures that were healthy before this, detonation, strokes, bloody noses still 16 months later, bloody poop. I mean, the list is so long. Dizziness, headaches, body tingling, cognitive issues, headache. I mean, in my stories, I have a whole long list. I can't list. There's so many symptoms. Not to mention emotional, depression, anxiety, PTSD. And you got people in Kalamazoo being gassed. This is a public health emergency. And we're being told by other reporters, oh, thanks, yeah, I found out about this development. I'll see if I can get to it in 2028. It's just fucking disgusting. We'll talk about whatever you want, but I needed to get this out. All right, let's go to the phones. Let's go to the phones here. I got about 20 minutes or so. Hold on. Ready. Colin. All right, don't be shy. Call in so we can get this out to more people. If you missed, we did have 2 pretty insane videos, I would say. If I have time, I'll show them later. But of pro-Israel people just literally, I mean, harassing fellow Jews that just aren't Zionists, Orthodox Jews, circling around them, threatening them, screaming threats at them, screaming obscenities about fucking their mothers, and then being praised by police. Yes, praised by police. Another video we posted this morning was a pro-Israel, I don't know, looked like he was a teenager, literally pushing an NYPD officer and getting to walk away. Can you imagine what would happen if an Arab pushed? It's just unbelievable. All right, first caller. Nylock, you're up.
Hello.
Hey there.
Are you able to hear me?
I can.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, given that this is about like I had to look over the topic because I just came in and I'm kind of late to everything, but
it's whatever you want to talk about.
What do you do about like religious zealot Zionist family members? Like, what do you do about that?
Oh boy, you asked something that I'm going to need 2 hours for. Well, before October 7th, to be honest with you, I just kind of had a policy of not talking to my father or brother about Israel, because what was the point? My father grew up super Zionist. He actually went to I guess you would call it a Zionist camp where they
oh wow,
learned how to they did training on how to protest, and they fake chain themselves to each other, and
Oh my goodness.
So when Arafat came to the U.S., they got together at the UN and like threw shit at his plane, and my dad got arrested. He loves telling the story.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I just never talked to them. I mean, the few times I did, it just ended up getting into a hour fight. And at a certain point, you're like, all right, I'm not going to. This is not his opinion. This is who he is. So I'm not going to change it. So why don't we focus on the things that love and like the Yankees or stupid shit. But obviously there was no.
Yeah, that's fair.
There was obviously no ignoring it with this, and they watched my coverage. At one point, I was live calling this a genocide, and my mom called me and gave a talking to me.
Oh goodness.
How do you deal with it? I mean, I can't speak to other people, but for me, I just follow kind of what I believe is right, and I have told them as best I can why I think they are wrong. I have told my mom, "You raised me that two wrongs do not make a right." So do I agree with October 7th and the Hamas attacks? No, I don't. Do I understand why they did it? I do. Do I agree with it? No. But with that said, I said to my mom, I mean, you can't respond to the killing of one set of innocents by slaughtering, 20 times more innocents, probably more than 20 times. I said to my mom, I grew up in Massapequa, New York, on Long Island. So if Seaford, the town,
Long Island.
yeah,
that's where half my family is from.
There you go. So if Seaford
yeah.
took missiles to us and blew up the house and killed us all, and everybody was killed but you, what would you do? And she just didn't have an answer because I think she got my point. So I think you deal with.
I think so too.
I think she deal with them by picking and choosing your spots. The couple times I've seen them since all this happened, we talk about it. It gets a little heated, and then we don't talk about it for a couple times. I have a daughter now, so that kind of binds us, and we focus on that, and them playing with her and all that. When I FaceTime my mom to talk to my daughter, we don't talk about this. My mom's like, I don't watch your channel anymore. I'm like, good riddance.
Oh gosh.
But every family is different. So for some other families, I mean, this could be something that causes estrangement.
Oh, totally.
But for me, I say my piece every day, and if they don't agree, they don't agree. Surprisingly, my dad, who's like a super duper pro-Israel Zionist, if it were up to him, we would.
Oh, wow.
If it were up to him, we'd live in Israel. He's not.
Oh, wow,
He's
that's
not
wild.
really. He's not really fighting with me about it. It's really my mom and my older brother, who's delusional. I think I've said this before, but he volunteered back in the day in the IDF. My older brother.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. So
yeah, like my family is mostly like born again Christians. So
yeah, similarities there.
I don't think there's any Jewish in my bloodline, to my knowledge. But
so I talked to my brother, and I talked to my brother, and he was giving me the whole birds and the bees, how the IDF is, does more than any other army in the world to minimize civilian casualties. And I said, well, then they're doing a pretty shitty job because because objectively that's a joke. Maybe it was like that when you served.
Yeah,
maybe it was like that when you served, because that was almost 20 years ago, but it's not like that now. So yeah, I mean, the best answer is you just try to avoid it. I'm not going to like cancel my parents or my brothers. I love them for other reasons, but they're just wrong. And you know what?
Oh yeah, that's totally understandable.
A lot of this, really what it comes down to is a lot of this is how you were raised. I mean, both of my brothers went to a private Jewish school. I did not. I went to public school.
Oh wow!
And my older brother,
and I got passed around the county.
Yeah, and
I was in 5 different school districts by the time I got to high school. So
yeah,
passed all over the county.
So my older brother got this Israel Zionist bug. My younger brother did not. My father, again, was raised by super duper Zionist parents. Was put at a camp for Zionists, and he, so you come out the way you were raised for the most part. Of course, you can come out of that. You can kind of deprogram, but it's not easy. Let's put it that way. It's not easy.
It definitely isn't. Like I've managed to avoid it for the most part, but like one time, like Mom asked me to go into the store and get her Starbucks, and I had to turn it down and explain why I'm not gonna do that.
Right.
And then she got aggravated with me and whatever. But like
actually,
it goes places.
Actually, I was a little nervous, to tell you the truth, about one day, because I didn't talk to him, but my dad usually goes to the Israeli Day Parade in New York, and John was going to cover it.
Oh goodness.
And I totally could see, like, my dad, being a lunatic that he is. I love him, but he is a bit loony. Getting into it with like Palestinian protesters, and like John capturing it on footage, and my worlds colliding with my dad, getting into it, and I wouldn't tell John what.
That would have been wild.
Yeah, John ended up, he couldn't do it that day, but I was just like, I can see this happening. Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. It's horrible what's going on.
Battles,
Exactly. So, but I condolences to you for the Christian zealots you've had to deal with.
Oh, for real. I mean, it hits another type of way when your parents literally tell you that if you don't support what Israel's doing, that you're going to hell. So, yeah.
Oh, I thought we lived in a democracy. You have to all have groupthink and agree on everything.
Even my brother was like,
Did you ask
God
them?
Doesn't approve of that.
Did you ask them what they thought when this?
Like, definitely not.
When did you ask them what they thought when the IDF spokesperson this week came out saying there is no defeating Hamas and that's a pipe dream, which has been the whole bullshit reason they've given? Yeah, let's see what they say about that. Because the IDF spokesperson came out.
It's like crickets at this point.
Yeah,
they got nothing to say now.
And by the way, I mean,
total crickets.
Can we just talk about the complete double standard? I mean, John, for example, captured the Palestinian protesters on a subway, yeah. And one of them was like, "Raise your hand if you're a Zionist, because we want to push you out." I'll be honest, I don't think that was a smart or appropriate thing to say. It could come off threatening, but I would boil that down to just a dumb thing to say. Okay. Well, the mayor and the police ended up putting out like a warrant to find this guy who asked people to raise their hand if you're a Zionist. Okay. So that happens, but we capture footage literally of Zionist pro-Israel fanatics pushing police. The kid repeatedly pushed that officer. We have it on we posted it this morning. He gets to walk away. Could you imagine if one of these Palestinian or Arab protesters wearing a keffiyeh pushed a cop? I mean, they might.
Oh my gosh, it would be like a bloodbath at that point.
Oh my God, it would be the front page of the New York Post. Fox News would be going on and on. Also, these Zionist pro-Israel people were screaming, "I'm going to rape your mother," in front of police at these protesters. "I'm going to kill you." Not a word. In fact, one of the police praised them, saying, "Good work." So
I was going to say, I think I saw the thumbnail for that video, but I don't think I got to see it just yet.
Well, watch it and send it to your family. And if they say it's good, then you got deeper problems than you know.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I'm going to be sending that one around. I have to check it out first.
All right. I got to run to the next caller. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Bye-bye. All right. Tony. Bye-bye. Tony.
Hello, Jordan.
Hey there.
Hey, so happy you're doing this today.
Me too.
So, even though I hate Biden and Trump, I did want to ask about the election because I was shocked that Biden actually agreed to do a debate with Trump this early in the year. And you've covered over the past several years how Biden clearly has cognitive decline, and he's not doing interviews lately. And I just want to get your perspective on why in the hell Biden would choose to debate Trump after what a disaster the debates they had back in 2020 were, and what their strategy is here.
I can't say for certain, but I'm pretty sure the reason they're agreeing to do it now is if he face plants, which is strongly possible. it's better to face plant in June than September or October. There might be enough time, to somehow recover. The other thing is, I don't think Biden is thinking this, but perhaps others in the Democratic Party are. If he face plants now, somehow that could be enough time to come up with some scheme at the convention to get him out of there, or get him to gracefully push aside. And also, I mean, listen, we are not in the White House with him. His people might be seeing that he's getting progressively worse, like every month, and they don't want to wait till September. And usually there's usually one debate in September, 2 in October, because they see that he's getting cognitively worse as we go on. I mean, it could be week by week. So my hunch is they see that, State of the Union, he got a little bump, but that's about it. They know he can't campaign that much because of his age and his cognitive stuff. So the only thing that could kind of move the needle a little bit is a debate. I know people think I'm joking, but I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that they're giving him something to take for these debates. I'm not speculating.
They have to be.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but you never know. And that goes for Trump too, by the way. Trump's not exactly a bastion of cognitive health either. There's been speeches where he's rambling like a lunatic and making no sense. But on the Biden end, I mean, my only guess is if they feel that if he face plants, there will be enough time to recover. The other thing is, frankly, they might look at it. If he does good, then they could just cut it at 1 and come up with an excuse not to follow through on the September debate. I'm sure Trump will do something reprehensible between now and September, and they could back out of it if they feel he did good enough in the first debate. So I think this is about kind of protecting themselves both ways. On one end, if he face plants, having enough time to recover, but if he overperforms, which the bar is low, saying, hey, we cleared the bar and now we don't have to do it again. So that's my guess.
I'm not sure I see that playing out because it's usually 3 debates every election.
Yeah, well, Trump has changed American politics, so the old rules don't apply. The old rules don't apply.
Do you think they'll still do do you think the convention will be in person or they'll get away with doing it online?
I think they're pushing more and more to have more of the convention be video. So there will be an online component. There will be an in-person component, but I think a lot of it is going to be kind of a hybrid. And more importantly, I recall being in Philadelphia in 2016. I was in Milwaukee in 2020, by the way, even though it was mostly a remote convention. I was still there because you had the yellow vest people. Was it Milwaukee? I forget. It was somewhere. Maybe Cleveland. I forget where it was. But I was at the convention in 2020 where the yellow vest people came and protested. But in 2016, I mean, they had walls up and protesters couldn't get anywhere near the building. I think it's going to be 10 times more militarized there. I don't think those protesters are getting anywhere near the convention center. That doesn't mean there's not going to be fireworks or violence. There probably will be. John Farina will be on the ground. But I think it's going to be Biden's speech will be in person. The heavy speeches will be in person. I'm sure Obama will speak. It'll be in person, but I don't think I think it's going to be the same thing as 2016. I think the media is going to largely ignore reality, which is what's happening outside. Maybe they'll show a little bit of the protest, but overall they'll, ignore it.
Yeah, and it's right by me since I'm right by Chicago.
Yeah,
I could go.
Well, there you go. If you want the wine, if you want the champagne and caviar, get a ticket because that's going to be
All
it.
right, thank you, Jordan.
All right, man. Thanks. All right, Ray, you're up. You there, Ray?
Oh, yeah. Hey.
Hey there.
Awesome to be on your show.
Welcome.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about some fundamental aspects of getting influence going, like with other people, just at work, at home, at school, and things like that.
Okay.
I've been pushing on it for like 15 years, ever since maybe 2016, since Bernie came out, and it's really hard to do. I mean, I'm in the South, in Georgia, and I mean, I work with guys that are older and younger, like father and son, and they believe that like women shouldn't even be allowed to vote.
Oh my
Being MAGA supporters, that was one of the big problems of this country, and trying to take, stride with people that are in your town, in your community, when they're on that side of the fence, like trying to do good from the inside. And one of the things I bring up is like, what do big businesses and big governments have in common? And typically big businesses have a board of executives, which means they use democracy at will, but they don't let anyone else underneath them really use it.
Mm-hmm.
And the same with governments, and trying to romanticize that idea to get a kind of participation in that kind of activity on a lower level. But it never takes very well. I try to introduce it, and even introduce basic things like I was able to take a logic course in university, and I've been pushing that for maybe 15 years as well, and nobody's interested in it. Like, I can't even dress it up to show like how important it is that contradictions can provide a lot of the power that media has to influence. And I don't know, I just wanted some, like, if you had any kind of tools or just ideas that work really well in kind of changing things from the inside.
Oh man, that's a tricky one, because the South is the South. I mean, I could tell you that, and John Farina could tell you, I have had many encounters at Trump rallies, not just in the South, but everywhere. And I've met and kind of had duels, not physical, back and forth with people like the people you're describing, that are like older white men that maybe they won't say it in public, but if you talk to them privately, probably are saying, things went wrong when we gave black people the right to vote or women the right to vote, or, they don't like the way things are changing. And it really takes a lot of repetition with those types of people. And often there is no changing them. And the main thing that you might be able to focus on, that you can make inroads with these kind of people, are economic issues and issues that affect the working class. Because I have found that even conservative people, if it's not called socialism, which is, there's been a lot of propaganda around that word, but if you just go issue by issue, they tend to be more economically progressive. They might not like it to be labeled that, but they tend to agree with a lot of things Bernie pushed, if it's phrased in their language. So that's my best advice with those kind of people. I'd focus on the economic issues, including healthcare for all, higher taxes on the wealthy, growing unions. Back in the heyday of unions, conservatives were just as much union members as liberals and progressives. I wouldn't focus on the cultural issues, because it's not going to get you anywhere.
And I got one more for you. Is so I go down to the community center down here, and of course, all older people now are all playing pickleball, and there's just a lot of activity in just park and rec type of areas. But back in the day, like when libraries were a big thing, the first time people used computers was in a library, and the first time people used robots was in a library. And that's another thing I try to put forward, is that there used to be recreational activity that was worth doing, that had business ties to it in libraries, and budgets that could offer people activities that would enter into their paychecks. Do you ever think about that, or a way to get that kind of romanced a little bit better?
Think about getting robots?
Well, no, so I'll give you an example. I picked up a guy hitchhiking because I live by the Appalachian Trail here, and they come through often. And one of the spots is you go to a library, you can charge your cell phone, and nobody really hassles you and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I just started going from the wall. Well, it's different than a university library. The Dewey, the the filing system, but I was just going from 0 to the top of the Dewey Decimal System, and I picked out about 25 books that all related to his situation.
Yeah.
And tied them together, just going through there. Never seen it, never had an experience like that. And where I'm at down here, they have Confederate records. And so I was able to pull maps from about 1680 to 1730, I think, where only half of the United States was the United States. And they had records of how there were curfews, how every soldier was actually trained overseas in the British areas
Wow.
before they were trained here at that time.
Wow.
And you can just see a lot. Yeah. You can have a real kind of influential experience going through material that's available.
Yeah.
But it's hard to push that again. It's hard to push stuff like that.
I think it's a great idea. I think that's a great idea to bring people together.
Thanks for your time. And yeah, I think it's a great idea to focus on economics. And I just love the work that you do. And thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, man. Rodney, you're up.
Hello?
Hey there.
Hey, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, great. Oh, hey, Jordan. I was just wondering, with your big book coming out and your Flint drive for your big story and everybody's ignoring you, have you had discussions with other leftist outlets and leaders and stuff to try?
Did we lose you? I lost you for a minute. I can't.
Hello?
Yeah, we lost you for a minute. You were saying that I have discussions with other left people about my book?
Yeah, like Kyle and Jank and Sam, all the leftist guys. And, I consume a lot of left media, but I just don't ever hear anybody like, we have to get together and have like a connection and like a momentum, like, because they're all divided. And I know everybody has to do their own thing and make their own money, but I don't see why anybody else wouldn't promote your documentary, your book, as just a thing to do. You know what I'm saying? And I think if we had a community like that, I just wonder, have you contacted those type of people? I don't know if you have the time and
wouldn't
everything.
That be a grand utopia? Well, I'll tell you what, Jank will not be promoting anything of mine for obvious reasons. I don't know if you know that I used to work there. They fired me. I would go on the Young Turks.
Is that ever repairable?
What? I mean, for me to get the story out, I would go on the Young Turks. I would gladly go on the Young Turks to get the story out, because the story is more important than my beef with Jank. Is it repairable that he and I would be friends? No. There's a lot you don't know about Jank that I've never shared. That is neither here or there. Let's just say we're not. That's probably not repairable. However, the story, not just Flint, but other stories, if the Young Turks wanted to be
progressivism in general.
If they wanted to be the bigger person, I would gladly go on their show and say thank you for having me and focus on the story. I have talked to Breaking Points. I have reached out to others, just telling them my book's coming. For the most part, I've got good responses that they'll have me on. Like I said, Susan Sarandon is going to interview me at a book event after the book comes out. I'm currently trying to get same thing for Michael Moore. I will be able to go on Michael Moore's podcast. I have a publicist that I hired because, I need help, obviously, for the book. So we're reaching out to everybody. I mean, Joe Rogan.
How about Michael's next MSNBC appearance? He brings it up.
From your lips
in the
to
3 or
God's
4 minutes they give him.
You would be shocked how hard it is to get people that are in the progressive left to signal boost. There's a very small clique of people, and outside of that little small clique, it's very hard to get them to signal boost. That's not to say they're bad people. Breaking Points, for example, they premiered my documentary, which I was very grateful for. They've posted a lot of our other videos, so I got nothing bad to say about them. But to these other outlets, I am hoping, and yes, I have reached out to a bunch of them. I've heard back from some of them. I'm hoping Kyle covers it. I'm hoping others will have me on. Myself and my publicist are going to reach out to every podcast, big, small, medium. I'll go on anywhere that wants to have me. I'm even going to reach out to right-wing media, including from Tim Pool to Fox News, because this story goes across. I mean,
because
everybody should be against poison water and the government knowingly poisoning people. But to answer your question, I think there's a bigger problem. I mean, I think the left there's very, very few actual journalists, capital J journalists in independent media. There's a lot of commentators, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that.
But even if it's not, but they comment on the stories that journalists do.
Which is my point.
And it makes, because you and Jank, 99, I don't know what your personal, I know there was something, and I know it's private, but from people on the outside that love both you guys are like 99% in agreement on everything. And if he can have conversations with Sam Harris and other these guys that are kind of like in the centrist, stupid libtard, excuse my language.
Listen, here's the
why can't you get together, or there be like a monthly little meeting or something behind the scenes, or some sort of summit every quarter?
I have had private conversations with people with much bigger outlets, much bigger platforms than I, and much more followings than I, pushing that we should all join forces as one network, where we would have scheduled programming. So Status Coup at X time of the night, followed by secular talk, or followed by, and do cross promotion and debates and have comedy skits, but one programming.
Yeah, at least start the cross promotion, instead of just being one entity. I know that's a lot of.
It fell on a lot of deaf ears.
Tentativeness there.
It fell on a lot of deaf ears, and I could only speculate why. I think there's egos involved. I think for some people that already have like over 1 million subscribers, for them, like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. They're doing well on their own. But to me, you got to just question, why are you in this? If you're in this to grow your own following, grow your own channel, and have independence, there's nothing wrong with that necessarily. It doesn't make you a bad person. But for me, part of why I'm in this is to counter the corporate propaganda and challenge the corporate media. And I don't think us all existing on our own little islands, perhaps that was okay in a time long ago called 2016, before there was 1 million podcasts, before there was TikTok, before there was this diarrhea of content. But now, I mean, people only have so much time and attention span, and there's a gazillion YouTube channels. There's a gazillion YouTube channels. There's a gazillion podcasts. There's a gazillion social media outlets. People work. People have kids. People want time to get away from all this. So for example, with TYT and Jank, there is personal stuff. I won't get into it. I'm sure they feel justified in being against me. But at the end of the day, if they are truly progressives, you would think they would put all that shit aside to elevate, in my view, the biggest government cover-up of the 21st century. Hell, they don't even need to have me on. They could just cover the book, cover the revelations.
Right. Exactly.
So they don't need to have me on.
Go on the Damage Report.
Right. They
go on Dr. Shad Ritchie.
Exactly. Because the truth is, what's going to come out in my book, yes, it's about the city of Flint, but it is about our toxic government. It is about a privatization scheme that poisoned the community, about a massive government cover-up from federal to state to local that involves Wall Street. If that's not up TYT's alley, or the Majority Report's alley, or Name Your Outlet's alley, and they don't want to cover it out of some spite against me for whatever reason, then that's sad on them. And they don't have to have me on, but this is about not lifting up me. It's about lifting up the story. Because I got news for you. The majority of people in Flint do not know the truth about who poisoned them and why.
Right.
So, and also, I mean, I have asked people who have been on Joe Rogan, can you put in a word for me? And I kind of got back, oh yeah, he doesn't even respond to me that much. So I kind of got like a non-committal.
He ain't gonna have you on there.
You know what? He probably won't.
Had Kyle on in 2 years.
But he probably won't. But the point is, wouldn't it help if somebody who's been on with him before said, "Hey, you should check this guy out. He's the only one still on this, and he's got a book coming out." I haven't even been met with. Yes, we'll do that. So it's very, very hard.
What's Nina Turner saying?
Well, Nina Turner did get me a blurb from my book, which I really appreciated. And the back of the book has her.
It's going viral, baby.
Yeah, the back of the book, Michael Moore gave me a blurb. I'm happy to say Aaron Brockovich wrote the foreword. So I got some help. And I'm sure if Nina Turner still had a show, she'd have me on. I don't think does she still have a show? I don't think so. But
No,
yeah,
she's just
bottom
saying things.
line, I'll go anywhere, whether it's TYT, I'll go on Tim Pool, I'll go on Fox News. I don't care. This is not about me. This is about the book and getting the truth out there. I'm not going to become some millionaire from this book. It's not going to become a New York Times bestseller. But at the end of the day, I think it's fucking important that 10 years later, an American city that's been poisoned has been left to die. And the people that poisoned them, including Wall Street, are sipping fucking Mai Tais on the beach this summer. So I hope,
because the next city is going to be in Tennessee or Alabama.
it's not the next city. It's not the next city. It's not the next
happening.
city, man. It's already happening in East Palestine.
It's going on right now.
The same playbook is going on in East Palestine right now. It's happening in Kalamazoo, Michigan.
My family's from Ohio.
There you go.
And it's insane. My aunt and uncle, they're like all my family there. They're all fucking MAGA heads. So they are just, like the last caller. It's impossible to like get through to them. But I'm like, it's in your state, and they have no clue because the local news and that Republican governor isn't going to highlight it because your guy was trying to get him on to answer a few questions. He just ran into his car and ran away.
And to tell you the truth, and this is probably stupid of me to say if I'm trying to get on Joe Rogan, but I'm just going to keep it real. I mean, considering some of the fucking clowns he has on his show and some of the nonsense they spew, it's just unbelievable. I mean, listen, in fairness, I am sure whoever is his producer is inundated with people pitching to come on his show. So I'm not saying I'm sure there's plenty of people pitching themselves, but Joe Rogan
got 5 layers before it even gets to him anyway.
Yeah, Joe Rogan seems to be very interested in conspiracies. Well, here's a conspiracy that's actually true. An American city was actually poisoned consciously, I think intentionally, and they covered it up in real time and allowed people to die. And it's still getting covered up, not just by Republicans, but by Democrats too. That sounds juicy to me.
Oh yeah.
So
corruption's bipartisan.
And it's, I'm not going to lie to you, man. It's very frustrating when you put in the sweat, the blood, the tears, 21 trips. I've put in my own money to covering this. I've lost money covering this. It's not about the money, but trust me, we have invested a lot in this.
Got it.
And I didn't write this book for personal advantage. I doubt I'm going to make that much money from the book. But it's very hard to stomach when you will see in this book, I believe it is, and I have been told by a reporter I trust that this is one of the best investigative books out there. And it breaks major stories that I have.
This is astonishingly just disgusting that this is. I mean, it's
and to see, I mean, just the shit that goes viral and the shit that passes for journalism now. And it's not just me. There's a few others that are just breaking their back to do real journalism, and you gotta just fight to get your own people to share it. It's a sad day. It's a sad state of affairs. And I'm thankful for.
How about the next time?
Go ahead.
You take a glass of their water, and even today, and say, "Hey, are you going to drink this right here on camera today?"
All I'll say is,
or are you going to pull an Obama?
all I will say is, you expect it to be an uphill climb for corporate media to lift these things up, but independent media, whether you like me or you don't, whether you have a beef with me or you don't, and whatever your beef is, it really is irrelevant unless you have proof that I murdered someone, which you don't. Whatever your beef with me is, you could cover the book. You don't even have to have me on. Cover the damn book. Have Flint residents on to react to the book. I could give you their numbers. And that goes for the Young Turks, the Majority Report, Kyle, who I don't believe I have a beef with at all. I think I've talked to Sam Cedar once, so I don't think we have a beef. I'm trying to think of some other shows, but yeah, I mean, listen, I'm a fan of Brianna Joy Gray. I've been on her show. I hope I'm invited on her show. I've seen about 40 videos on Brianna Joy Gray getting fired from The Hill. I'm not saying it's not important.
Not that it wasn't.
I'm not saying it's not important.
Right.
I've seen not one independent outlet cover my story on the EPA hiding that they found toxic vinyl chloride in East Palestine. I've seen not one independent outlet cover my story that the FBI is investigating Democratic Governor Gretchen Whitmer approving tax breaks and a bond deal for a paper mill that is literally gassing a poor black community. I'm not being dramatic. They're literally gassing a black community.
It got the expansion.
Exactly. I've seen not one cover it, and they all know about it because I've sent it to them. So at a certain point, when I'm naming names, we cannot exclude our friends in independent media. Doesn't mean they're bad people.
Right.
But at the end of the day, it's okay if one of your videos doesn't go viral or doesn't get a lot of clicks if it means getting the truth out of there.
Right.
And if you can't make it if you can't make it clickbaity, if you can't make it sexy that the Democratic governor is being investigated by the FBI for allowing a company gassing a community to expand, then you got to work on your headlines. If you can't make it clicky that the EPA found toxic chemicals that are causing cancer and didn't tell anyone, then that's on you. There's ways to do both. Report it and get clicks. Anyway, you got me going. But bottom line, I'll go. I'll go anywhere. I don't care who it is. Because I got, this is 10 years, man. If we don't get the truth out now, this is going to go on and on and on, and there's never going to be the truth. There's never going to be accountability. And
we're at a tipping point. Like, we're either going to have it, something's going to get so bad that there will be a mass wake up. But I'm afraid that isn't going to happen, and that these corporate Democrats are going to be. I have a thing I say. It's like if the Democrats and the Republicans were our parents, the Republicans would be like the abusive father that, and the Democrats would be the mother that looks the other way and makes excuses for them.
Right.
And we're the children, like the progressives trying to, save our brother or sister, and they're just not doing anything about it.
And by the way, let's not forget Elon Musk. Many years ago, he said, I'm going to provide free filters for all of Flint. Yeah, that didn't happen. Elon Musk is too busy retweeting and sharing white supremacist nonsense and horrible bullshit on Twitter, which he's destroyed. When I go on Twitter now, it just looks like all AI fucking right-wing crazy bullshit and people I don't even follow coming up on my thing. How about Elon Musk comment on the book? Can I get that since he told the Flint mayor, I'm going to pay for full filtration for all of Flint. Never did it. So
where does Tom Hartman give you a shout out? Do you have any contact with him?
Yeah, I've been on Tom before. I think he'll have me on for this too. So
cool. Yeah.
Right.
And one last thing I wanted to ask you, like with Pacman and Brian Tyler Cohen, what is the thing that they don't do that as leftists and progressives you think they should? Because I have my theory.
First off, if anybody has
the money in politics,
if anybody has
a bribe specifically like you do, like Cenk does.
If anybody has a personal contact if anyone has a personal contact for David Pacman, please send it to me because I've tried to get a contact for him. He's not my political cup of tea, but I'd gladly go on his show. I'd love to go on David Pacman's show.
But
listen, David Pacman, Brian Tyler Cohen.
Chasm with that.
Yeah, I mean they're Team Blue guys. I mean, what can you say? Particularly,
they're doing it not to piss off the corporate Dems.
Brian Tyler Cohen.
They're just progressive enough to not step on the, like the Zionist bullshit and
David Pacman
and the money in politics. That's the two major things. That's why I can't watch David anymore.
I don't know them. I don't know.
He's ignoring a genocide.
I don't know either of them, so they might be nice guys. But both of them kind of remind me of how I was like circa 2009 and 10.
I'm sure they're great guys.
Yeah, they remind me of how I was.
They have a blind spot on that.
No, they have a blind spot, just like a lot of people. They remind me of how I was before I actually traveled the country and saw that, there is no blue or red. It's just all green. And they're all corrupt and they're all full of shit. And I learned that by going around the country. But before that, I was very much a Team Blue guy. I thought I watched MSNBC back in the day. I'm not going to lie. I got hooked in on the Obama, hope and change fairy dust. And a lot of people are like that if they sit in a studio and they don't know, they have never been to Flint or East Palestine or spoken with a sea of homeless people like I have, or done economic reporting trips where they're talking to people who are searching for change in their couch to fill up the gas tank. or talking to people that are literally going to sell their blood plasma twice a week to pay the bills. I have. So no offense, pretty sure David Pakman and Brian Tyler Cohen, that's not their reporting process.
And they're not journalists, like you are.
Yeah. But
either way, connection between the group of people that agree on 99% of everything should have some at least conduit, because the Republicans and the Democrats, those big behemoths, have it.
I would happily go on David Pakman.
They read everything.
I'd happily go on Pakman. I'd happily go on Cohen's show if he has one. And if anybody has hookups to either, send my shit to them, because this is about Flint. It ain't about me. It really is not about me. I don't.
Yeah.
And if they don't want to have me on, I'll just send them a couple bullets on the bombshells in the book, and they could cover it. But it's sad. Yeah. It is sad if you are quote unquote independent media, if you are allowing the normalization. I don't care if it's 10 years later or 10 minutes later. If you are allowing the normalization of Americans being poisoned by their government, it being covered up, and then they are left to slowly die. Flint has one of the fastest growing cancer rates in America. It's not from the weather, it's from the water. Then you are part of the problem if you're not covering that. And if you're just going to accept, oh, it happened so long ago. Well, no wonder then that there's mass shootings and people cover it for a minute and move on.
Oh, just had an idea. You know how every so often there's like a high school journalist student that breaks a story that embarrasses the big boys?
Yep.
Why don't you give that information to a bunch of like heads of the journalism class or something, and the school papers, send an email out nationwide, see how many bite, let that come up, and let them look stupid. Like these high school kids are doing it.
That's a great idea.
I don't know. I'm just brainstorming.
Either way, this is going to be guerrilla warfare to get this book out and get the word out. And I'm going to need help from everyone. So the audience.
Yeah. I wish you the best, my friend.
All right. Thanks so much. All right. I gotta wrap the calls because I gotta go help tuck in my daughter soon. Thank you everybody for calling in. I'll do it longer next time. Colin, how do I end this?
I'll end it here.
Okay, cool. Let me read some super chats. Tony, 27 months members. Don't be afraid to name names. Online media too. It's tough. Do I want to name names of independent media that are pissing me off right now and risk not being invited on their show for the book? It's tough. I do want to name some names. Maybe I will after the book. Ryan, $2. Citizen journalism, our last hope for truth. Thanks, Ryan. Big Dumb Animal, gifted 1 Status Coup membership. Thank you so much, Big Dumb Animal. I really appreciate that. Tony, another $2. I canceled plans to go to the movie theater for this. Well, Tony, you could have watched it on demand. I don't want you to cancel plans to go to the movies. Philip, $5. Tony Greenstein, author, friend of Elon Pape, was arrested for a tweet over in the UK. Really? What did he tweet? To look into that. Donald, member for 6 months. Appreciate all you do, Status Coup. I appreciate you being a member. Ryan, $2. Rants, humanity, humor. Enjoy the show. Why, thank you. I appreciate that. Mr. All Electricity Car Lunacy, $4.99. It might become a bestseller. Look at that book, Bad Blood, about Theranos. Good point. I have been told that it's actually doing fairly well on Barnes & Noble in terms of pre-orders. So make sure you go pre-order the book. You could pre-order it on Barnes & Noble's website, Amazon, whatever floats your boat. The link to the Barnes & Noble pre-order is under the live stream. So you could pre-order. We are well over 500 pre-orders now. I want to get to 1,000 pre-orders before the book comes out August 6th. Tony gifted a Status Coup membership. Thank you, Tony. I appreciate that very much. Kim, $3.99 super sticker. Thank you. Thank you, folks, for watching. It's up in the air. John has been a little under the weather the last few days, so if he's feeling better, we might cover a protest or two this weekend. If not, we still have quite a lot of content to release, and we'll be back at it next week. Thank you so much for watching. Have a very nice weekend.